since December. For the better part of TLC right through to Elimination Chamber here and now, we've been seeing Kane and John Cena. I think they'll have one more match at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. That's the way I see it. They can afford to go one more pay-per-view with this thing, then they have to wrap that thing up. Maybe Kane can be used to kind of put The Rock and John Cena over and on higher pedestals leading into WrestleMania. Kane will tie in somehow with the whole John Cena and Rock angle for WrestleMania 28. There's a lot of history behind The Rock and Kane and The Rock and John Cena and The Rock and John Cena and Kane all together. So I can see Kane tying in somehow with The Rock and John Cena leading into WrestleMania 28. But the way I see it is The Rock and John Cena have to be promoted as a one-on-one match. And Kane and John Cena can afford to go one more pay-per-view here. So if we're going to see John Cena embracing the hate as the promotional tactic indicates, we're going to have to see him embrace that sometime between now and Elimination Chamber and whatever kind of match Kane and John Cena are going to be involved in at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. I found that kind of weird, how Kane and John Cena weren't in the Elimination Chamber match for Raw and the WWE Championship. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who found that kind of weird, because I would have expected John Cena and Kane to be involved in the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. Instead, we have the likes of Kofi Kingston, The Miz, Dolph Ziggler, and Chris Jericho being considered top contenders for the WWE Championship, and that whole interaction between Chris Jericho and CM Punk was kind of weird to me. You know, that's the most interesting angle for the Raw Elimination Chamber match. I'm not having anything against Chris Jericho and CM Punk. They've never really feuded in a long-term angle. So it'd be interesting to see them do something for WrestleMania 28, although I'm expecting John Laurinaitis to step into the ring for the first time in over a decade against Punk at WrestleMania. Jericho and Punk will probably sell the Raw Elimination Chamber match for the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view probably just as effectively as Sheamus are selling the pay-per-view promos for WWE's Elimination Chamber 2012. But I was really expecting John Cena and Kane to be involved in the Raw Elimination Chamber match. Hopefully the SmackDown Elimination Chamber match will look better for people like Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, and Wade Barrett, who are continuing their feud over on SmackDown. So I was really expecting John Cena and Kane to be involved in the Raw Elimination Chamber match, and that was a real downer for me. You know, one of the negative things that came out of one of the latest editions of Raw. And really what they're all hyping up to is this John Cena inevitable heel turn. Do you think that John Cena will turn heel? Let me know. Facebook.com, Jonathan Clarke, YouTube.com, Jonathan Clarke 22. You can join the conversations on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. We are following John Cena and The Rock. You know, I saw an interesting piece on John Cena, therefore, did you know fact here recently on a recent edition of Raw, and it indicated that John Cena had a lot of followers, more followers than a lot of celebrities, and they listed some of those celebrities, and he's ahead of a lot of big names. So I think that, you know, it's probably wise to leave it up to Facebook and Twitter to promote this thing while The Rock is out promoting a movie with Vanessa Hudgens, who was completely overwhelmed being in the presence of The Rock. Somehow I find that hard to believe. I think that was just done for the purpose of a 45-second video clip. But I think that, you know, we're going to see The Rock back. He is scheduled to make a couple of Raw appearances, and probably John Cena will turn on The Rock. That's what will give him the majority of his heel heat. It's not going to be anything he does with Kane. I just recently saw them engage in a brawl at the Royal Rumble. I saw footage of that on YouTube, and I saw footage of you know, Kane and John Cena on Raw the other night, where Kane and John Cena engaged in an absolute brawl, which was kind of pointless. You would have thought that if John Cena was going to turn heel, he would have done it the night after the Royal Rumble, because he didn't get the job done against Kane. They had a brawl at the Royal Rumble, which was better than the one I saw on Raw less than 24 hours after one of the greatest Rumbles of all time. We are going to be revealing the winner of the Royal Rumble here next week on the show, and running down the Royal Rumble card and the results of the show in their entirety. So make sure you listen to the show here next week, because we're going to be revealing the Royal Rumble winner and run down through the card of the Royal Rumble, because it was an interesting show, the outcome of the show. I wasn't expecting the individual who won the Royal Rumble to come out on top. You know, I was leaning towards Randy Orton, Wade Barrett, Chris Jericho, somebody who we hadn't seen in a long time, potentially make a return, like Nash or something, to win the Royal Rumble. caught me completely off guard, but I was happy for him. I'll reveal the Royal Rumble winner here next week on the show and give you a complete rundown of the show. Something like we did for TLC last month on the 18th of December. We'll do the same thing for the Royal Rumble here next week. I got complete results of the show. I'll give you my opinion on the Royal Rumble and the Raw that took place 24 hours after the Royal Rumble. The thing that jumped out about the Royal Rumble was the winner of the actual Rumble match. How some of the matches didn't have a definite winner. And the night after, actually, we got a good wrestling show, putting wrestling in quotations, one of the better WWE wrestling shows I'd seen in years. So I'll tell you my opinion on that, because I really think we got a lot of good wrestling last night from Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. That was a great match, wasn't it? You know, they exchanged a lot of near falls, hold for hold. It was really great. So I'll give you my opinion on the Royal Rumble. I'll reveal the Royal Rumble winner, if you haven't already heard, on some wrestling news website. Was really expecting The Rock to make an appearance at the Royal Rumble just 24 hours ago, but he didn't. And you would have expected they would have hyped up The Rock and John Cena for WrestleMania at the Royal Rumble. I was expecting originally that The Rock would have faced CM Punk for the title, and The Rock would have won the title and would have went into WrestleMania as the champion. And that seemed to be the way they were going with this thing, but they kind of changed it up at the last minute, and now it seems like it's not even going to be for the WWE title, because Cena's not even in the Elimination Chamber match. Why not put him in the Elimination Chamber match with people like Dolph Ziggler and Kane and Chris Jericho, and have him do something barbaric inside of the chamber to really embrace the hate? That would have been an effective way to get John Cena over as a heel character. But you know, it's interesting that they're actually considering turning him heel now, because I read an article a few months ago that John Cena was selling that much merchandise and generating so much of a profit for WWE that Vince McMahon didn't even want to consider turning him heel. And it's interesting now that they're actually considering going through with a heel turn for John Cena, something we haven't seen for the better part of 10 years. The last time I saw John Cena do anything in regards to heel work was probably back in 2004 or 2003, when he was feuding against people like The Undertaker, who was doing the whole American Badass thing back then, around the 2003 Vengeance pay-per-view. I think that was the last time I saw him do anything in terms of a heel promo or some kind of heel work inside of the ring against the likes of The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, who were doing a fantastic job promoting the WWE Championship angles back then. But you know, it's getting interesting. I have to give WWE credit. You know, the whole Kane John Cena thing is getting old. And the novelty is very quickly wearing away off that, because we've seen John Cena and Kane wrestle before, not in a long-term program that's gone a couple of months. We've seen them wrestle before, and it's getting really old quicker than it's getting interesting. So I think that they can afford to go one more pay-per-view, because it seems like they're not doing anything with the angle, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. I mean, if they were actually making progress turning John Cena heel, you know, I would see it actually serving a purpose, but right now it doesn't seem like the whole Kane-John Cena thing is really serving a purpose. Kane is there basically doing on-screen promos and doing backstage promos that are shot prior to Raw going live, and he comes out and does something for about 5 minutes in the ring with Kane and John Cena and the whole Eve Torres thing. It's getting really boring. I don't even see where Eve Torres ties in with that. Why Eve Torres and Zack Ryder have to be included in this angle with John Cena. Maybe because John Cena appeared on Zack Ryder's YouTube show a couple of times. Maybe that's why we're seeing them, you know, be involved in the angle with Kane and John Cena. I don't see Zack Ryder and Eve really fitting into this whole thing. And I talked about Eve and Zack Ryder here last week on the show. If you catch that video archive on our YouTube channel, I really go into detail about the women's division and how Zack Ryder and Eve are doing on Monday Night Raw. I don't think they're really contributing much. I think it would be better if we saw Zack Ryder, you know, not play up the back injury as much as he is and actually compete inside of the ring, or attempt to actually regain his U.S. Championship, which is currently being held by Jack Swagger, I think it is. So, you know, I think Jack Swagger is a better U.S. champion, by the way, than Zack Ryder, but I really don't see why, you know, he's not feuding with Jack Swagger and actually attempting to get back his U.S. Championship. Rather, he's just kind of there for the sake of being there, and that's the real unfortunate thing with that. I'm expecting John Cena to turn heel and do something with The Rock around the time The Rock starts making Raw appearances on a regular basis. In order for a heel turn to come from John Cena, The Rock's going to have to appear on Raw at least twice leading up to WrestleMania. They're going to have to do some tag team work leading into WrestleMania, kind of use, a tag match with people like, I don't know, Epico and Primo if they have to really get, John Cena's heel turn over. I think that, turning The Rock heel would have been a good move too, because The Rock was a good heel back in like 2003 when he was in these programs with Hulk Hogan and Mr. McMahon, and really helped that feud prior to WrestleMania 18. So I think that, or WrestleMania 19 rather, I'm sorry. I think that you need to have something happen between The Rock and John Cena. You just don't need The Rock to come in and make one Raw appearance leading into WrestleMania. He's going to have to make several, and there are a couple of Raw appearances listed for The Rock leading into WrestleMania. I think anywhere from 2 to 3 appearances are going to be made by The Rock. And the question I have, do you think that's enough? Do we need to see more appearances from The Rock? Does he need to come in and have a contract signing with John Cena, which I guarantee is going to be one of The Rock's 2 appearances he's going to make leading into WrestleMania? It's going to be for a contract signing or some kind of stupid face-to-face where they do kind of a funny promo leading into it, or something stupid like that where The Rock says he's going to bring it. John Cena says the C Nation is going to bring it to The Rock. And do we really need to see that? I think that what we need to see is, The Rock in the ring before WrestleMania to get rid of some ring rust that he probably has, although he looked good at the Survivor Series in New York City where he made his debut 15 years ago. I think, it's, inevitable that The Rock needs to return to the ring prior to WrestleMania. They just can't expect to put him in the ring against John Cena, a guy he's never wrestled against before, doesn't really understand his moveset, what he's really all about. I think they need to do more in-ring work together rather than just one tag team match against the Awesome Truth that are no longer together, a team that incepted the night after Survivor Series. And, The Miz and R-Truth did a phenomenal job at the Survivor Series, putting over The Rock and John Cena the way they did. I give them all the credit in the world. I'm not a huge Miz fan, but I really do put The Miz and R-Truth on a pedestal for putting The Rock and John Cena over the way they did. This is something that I think needs to be done. We need to see The Rock and John Cena even in a tag match against The Undertaker and Kane, if you need to go that way with it. If there's not a team you can put them in the ring against, why not do that? Or put them in the ring against Air Boom if you have to, who I haven't been seeing much from in a while. Santino Marella and Yoshitatsu, or Epico and Primo if you got to. We need to have The Rock back in the ring more than just once. One appearance on pay-per-view that you had to pay over $80 to see The Rock return to the ring for the first time in 7 years was completely unnecessary. The price of The Rock appearing back inside of the ring and actually wrestling was over $80. I priced that thing. It was absolutely atrocious, actually, having to pay that much to see it. If you did make that unfortunate sacrifice, I pity you and I feel sorry for you, because The Rock was in that match probably all of 5 minutes. Comes in, does the rock bottom deal on the Awesome Truth, leaves with the rock bottom on John Cena. Another problem I have with this whole thing is The Rock seems to be getting the majority of the final words leading into WrestleMania 28, and after seeing that promo that they did for The Rock, where they took a look at his movie here recently on the latest edition of Raw, the night after the Rumble, it seems to me like The Rock is going to be leaving the business after WrestleMania 28. So probably The Rock will pass the torch to John Cena, like the torch was passed to The Rock from Hogan to The Rock back in '02. I can see that happening and The Rock leaving. I can see The Rock losing, courtesy of the FU or the